Hello, welcome to a special edition of Community Pulse. With me today in the HCTV studio is Kathy Burwell, the President and CEO of the Helena Area Chamber of Commerce, and Nathan Wellington, who's with the County Public Health Department.
Lewis and Clark Public Health.
Lewis and Clark Public Health. You're the Tobacco Use Prevention Officer.
Yes.
And we're here to talk about a very recently passed resolution at the City Commission regarding smoking distance, on the street.
Right.
So I think it's so new and so fresh. A lot of people, this is going to be news to them. So let's start, Kathy, with you and give us a little bit of background to what it is and how it got going, and then we'll get into the details of its implementation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I believe some of this started from some of the people that live downtown, and there was a few establishments that weren't watching what was going on outside of their business, and so smoke was going up through vents and open windows and stuff and causing problems. And so I think that was maybe the start of some issues, and there was a city commissioner who identified that, and his first reaction or solution was that we should have a 30-foot setback on the businesses, and that they would be responsible for the people outside of their business who were smoking in that outdoor area.
So by setback, that means if you're going to smoke, you got to be 30
feet from the entrance of any business. And downtown you got business, and that's just impossible.
And sidewalks are only, 8 feet wide or something
right,
like that?
And so it would be out into parking lots and in the middle of the street, and people don't always know what your rules or laws are when they come to visit from maybe another country or something. But the biggest problem that the chamber saw was they were going to be punitive to the business if someone was smoking outside their business. Well, if you're keeping track of what's going on inside your business, you're not always aware of someone walking by or standing outside. And so, businesses definitely don't want the entrances of their businesses to be prohibitive for people to come through and not have to go through smoke or anything. But we didn't want them to be fined for things that they are really hard to control.
Not enforcing something adequately.
Right, and then it also became something that the city of Helena would have a really hard time to enforce. And so we went to the city county health departments and said, and there was a group of business owners. There was like this isn't just a downtown Helena problem. This was all over the city. So we had people from convenience stores. We had people who own restaurants and bars and breweries and stuff involved with this. And we said, why not be proactive rather than just go in and fight this? Why not be proactive and develop something that's a reasonable solution that the businesses and the city county health and the city commission can all get on board with. So we started this about, I would say 8 months ago, and have met regularly. And there's a group of probably 15, 16 people that have been meeting all the time. And so we came up with a resolution rather than an ordinance. And so then the resolution is more of a suggestion that we think that the businesses can get on board with and self-regulate themselves. And so that's kind of where we've come to, and of course that got passed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so similar to activity at the state level, a resolution is non-binding. It's a very well-crafted proposition for voluntary compliance.
Right. Exactly.
With a good concept. Well, Nate, were you there at the beginning when they came to your department and said, let's do something? Give us a little bit of background on your own involvement.
Yeah, so I actually just started my position in June, so I wasn't there from the beginning, but I came through to the work group, and it's been a joy working with the whole businesses, or the businesses as a whole. And so we saw that a flexible plan would be better, because if you look, like Kathy was saying, the downtown 30 feet from one business and you're sitting in another one. But the businesses really took the lead and came up with this resolution that I think works for everyone.
Right.
So in your mind's eye, since it's probably, okay, it's been passed and it's on the books and people, the businesses know about it. What's the day-to-day reality now in terms of dealing with
good
people
question.
who, they may be coming from another country, and we know a lot of people in
Yeah.
other countries smoke a lot.
Yeah.
So what's it like right now?
Well, there will be some signage, but the Tri-County Tavern Association, I believe it is, that Bruce McCullough is part of, they are actually going to provide signs, and we're all going to put on our website the things that they can download, signs and regulations that they can download so that they can do their best to make their business in compliance with the resolution. And I think it will behoove everybody to try to do this. And this, we put it at 10 feet instead of the first draft from the city was they wanted 30 feet. Well, 10 feet is pretty reasonable. You can have a space, you can have
be on sort of the
a
curb.
receptacle where people can put their cigarettes out that's 10 feet from your entrance, that type of thing, so that hopefully it'll encourage people not to. And of course, kind of a universal sign is the cigarette with a line through it, and so I believe there'll be more of those signs put up around, and some of them will be put up by the businesses and probably some by the city, but it's to encourage good behavior is what it is.
The cultural
Yeah.
campaign of sorts.
Right.
Well, the specific language of the signs, is that written into the resolution, or is that kind of a flexible
Right.
challenge to, okay, how scary to make the sign look? So it might, you might want to make it look like it's an ordinance, even though it's weaker.
Yeah.
What's the sign going to look like, do you think? Or is it fixed in language?
So it's not fixed in language, and we're still sort of working with the business owners on that. And what we've created is this toolkit, we call it, and it has, which we're still creating in the implementation process, along with a way to track the businesses that make policies and celebrate that, because it needs to be celebrated. And in the toolkit, we're going to have model policies, some stricter than others, and you can plug in your business's name, things to consider. Because this has to strengthen the Clean Indoor Air Act, at least uphold it, so smoke can't infiltrate into the building still.
So there's this basic framework that the resolution needs to comply with to avoid being out of compliance with federal law.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a lot of common sense too, and I think businesses being a part of this rather than having someone come down on them and say, you will do this or else, I think because they want their business attractive, they want people to patronize it, and businesses are probably the most concerned of anybody about this kind of a situation. So I think that having them draft as sealed, if they write it, they will underwrite it. And so that's what
a good phrase,
we're hoping that the businesses will appreciate the fact. And the signage is going to be free. The Tavern Association is going to provide the signs for free. And I think it's just a win-win. And it also shows that business can come to the table and do something that's right for the community, and that and they don't need so many laws and regulations and rules, and I think this is just a win-win. It's especially a win for business.
Yeah. Well, at the time the commission was hearing this and discussing it, was there any hint that this is like a test, and you downtown community, you have to meet the test in a certain time frame, or else we're going to come back with our draconian measure that they wouldn't see it that way. But
No.
is this, you think it's settled for the time being,
they
that
want
this
us-
is really agreeable
Yeah.
for everybody concerned?
Well, they want us to be accountable. So we're trying to make sure that wherever people download the toolkit, that we're tracking who is doing that and what business, and so that we know who is interested in wanting to make this work. And so they did want us to be accountable for it, but they were very agreeable. I think in the big scope of things, that the city commission wanted us to come to them with a solution rather than them having to come down with something that this way we worked with the health department and made sure that it was compliant with the Indoor Air Act and that it was copacetic with any other laws or rules that were already in place. But it'll be a work in progress. And
Yeah.
I think they'll probably want a report in a year.
Yeah, they have actually requested a report from us in a year, and so that's how we're working on tracking it and really seeing what this resolution
Some
does.
show
yeah,
us the results.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had just a devilish thought, forgive me, but let's say 9 out of 10 businesses who are interested in this and they're eager to comply and they're eager to put the signs up and they see this as a win.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any prospect for a recalcitrant business owner who actually invites smoking? I know you can't invite smoking in because there are ordinances that govern that, but the rogue proprietor has anybody talked about that, or is that just a fabrication in my own mind?
We haven't really run into too much of that. I would say some of the people that, in my mind, could have been bad actors if you came down really with a strong arm and said this is the way it's going to be and went for the 30 feet and everything. I think they were all at the table. They were there wanting this to be a good solution, and I think you have to realize too that a lot of it's hard to get employees right now.
Yeah.
And so a lot of employees, especially at those lower wages, might be smokers. And, they want to give them breaks. They want to be a good employer. Well, do you want them to have to walk 1.5 miles from your business before they're 30 feet from a business so they can have their break?
Yeah.
That just doesn't even make sense. So most of them, I know the Rialto downtown has a place in the back for their people to go smoke that's not around an entrance or going to waft up into the upper stories or anything. Most people were already kind of in compliance in a lot of ways.
So this is more of a nudge, just to keep going in that
It
same
is.
direction.
Yeah.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left. That time flies.
You should
But
take that.
but
I don't
we
know too much.
we were talking before we started about this sort of new phenomenon, particularly among young people with vaping. Not exclusively young people, but that's a kind of a target market. And you're mentioning that it's kind of difficult to find employees, and so you can't be too picky. If they smoke, and you have to kind of accommodate their addiction if it's gotten to that point. So I know you kind of be following statistically, how pervasive smoking and vaping is among youth in our community. You want to just speak to that? Because I'm sure that's part of this, how vapors and smokers are going to get and keep their jobs downtown and not fall afoul of a culture of clean air.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's nationwide, not just Lewis and Clark County, but we got our YRBS data, youth risk behavior survey data back, which is taken by the high schoolers, and 48% of Lewis and Clark high school students are currently using vapes, which include Juuls and e-cigarettes and all of those. And so you look at, we were trying to write that into the resolution as well, and it's a part of the Clean Indoor Air Act, but it's definitely a big issue.
Yeah.
It's really scary when you see that they think it doesn't have nicotine.
Yeah.
And even the ads say, well, I quit smoking and I didn't know how easy it'd be until I found this certain brand. And you're like, but it's still nicotine, so you're not kicking the nicotine habit.
You weren't addicted to the smoke.
Yeah, but
it was
it
the
is.
nicotine in the cigarette.
Yeah. And adults can do what adults do. I'm not going to judge them, but when it's underage children, I think it's just really scary and a bad situation for the schools. You can't even always identify what it is because it might look like a jump drive or it might look like a pen or whatever. It does not always look like something that an e-cigarette or whatever. But it's scary.
Yeah. I know that the puffs are recognizable. It's white smoke and it's voluminous. It dissipates, but I know now a difference between a smoker and a vapor. Well, I'm sorry we've run out of time. I want to congratulate you first for accomplishing this because obviously it took a lot of effort and it is a clever way of going about improving the business climate in our community
Right.
without inviting the iron fist or the iron hand or the
Right.
heavy hand, I say,
The big brother.
of government. Yeah. So you've done a marvelous job, and we'll see how it goes, and you'll have the happy task of being accountable for it and
Yep.
providing the data when the city commission asks for it.
Right.
So Kathy and Nathan, thank you very much for being here and for telling us about it.
You're
And
welcome.
good luck with the marketing and the promotion and all that, because it sounds
Right.
like that's critical to your success.
And know that we're both the health department and the chamber are here to help them, so that they can self-regulate and do what's right for their business, and hopefully it's going to make a big difference.
All right. That's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for watching Community Pulse. Check back soon and often. See you later.